talking about the capital and benefits budget tonight. Mr. Tuttle, it's in your hands.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I see everyone's here to cure insomnia, so welcome aboard. Anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about our capital and benefits. This is our third meeting of budget. You'll notice on the last one, we had the revenue discussion. We've asked the Board of Education if we can move that to April 2nd. In fact, hopefully that the state budget will be done by April 1st, and we'll have the final numbers where we need to be for budget purposes. So a couple slides to keep going, what we talk about every time, just some of our estimations for budgeting. And our percentages, our consumer price index for most things is 2% increase. Our tax cap growth is maxed at 1.81% this year. Our teacher retirement system, the usual average percentage is 9.53, and the ERS, which is our employee retirement system, 14.6. And usually most things for BOCES is a 5% increase for us. Some more assumptions. Our health reserve has a $5 million in it now. Premiums have been unchanged for 2.5, almost 3 years now. Foundation aid has increased from the January runs, a little over 5%, and our community school increase almost 18%. And then hopefully, as I said, the state budget will be finalized by April 1st. So tonight is the capital and benefits. As you can see, roughly 36% of the budget is this for tonight. So some of our changes to capital, we're in really good shape in the capital budget this year. We're seeing in operations, and most of it is due to salaries, is the increase. Our maintenance is up a little bit over 2%. And again, the dollar amounts in the middle are just the change of an increase, or it could be a decrease with the negatives. Our judgment and claims is down. We've analyzed that for the past 3 years, not really using much out of that account, so we're able to take some funds out of there. Our debt service is down. That's the bigger decrease for us this year. And our inter-fund transfers are increased by $200,000. And so overall, our total capital decrease, $227,607. So a little bit less than 1% for us this year is actual decrease. So kind of good on that budget, bless you. So a couple things we want to talk about in the capital budget. So with the state, they have this thing called the capital outlay, where a district can outlay up to $100,000 in a 1 year, but they need to actually transfer the money to a capital account through the budget process, include it in the May budget. So we need 1 year to complete the project. So that'd be from July. Everything would have to be complete by next June 30th of 21. And focus on small projects each year. So we've started to assemble a list of smaller projects that we want to focus on, and we'll talk about those now. So some of the potentials at the high school, some sidewalks over on Gardner Ave along the baseball field are in dire need of some repair. And over at Twin Towers, the folding partitions in the gym haven't been in operation for quite some time, and the ceiling tiles in this gym there are falling down. So through the capital outlay, we're allowed $100,000, and then we get aid on that money in the next year. What we're asking for the board's approval this year is to transfer $300,000 to capital through the budget process, so we can work on these 3 items for next year. So essentially, overall, when through May we vote on it, we get the work done hopefully over the summer or before December, and then we submit all the paperwork the year after, and we get 70% of the $100,000 back. So that's what we're asking for the capital outlay this year. So in 2017, we created a capital reserve. It was approved, and through the budget, it was proposition number 2. That was for 20 years for $20 million that we could put in there. At that time, we did not put $20 million in it, but you can take up to 20 years to put $20 million into the reserve. And to date, we've put over $16 million in it, and we've spent over $13 million out of there. So what does that mean? We can still put just a little bit under $4 million into that reserve, and that's really a reserve for us when we want to do any more capital projects in the future. Who knows what we need down the road. So for the board's approval or consideration For 2020, create a new reserve in the May 2020 vote, and this would be called Proposition 2 as well. Required 50+1 for approval, and that would be for 20 years for $20 million as well. So basically, they would run parallel for a while until we exhausted, until we funded the 2017 one, and then we could start funding the 2020 reserve. Just moving forward in anticipation of any future projects that we need. Based on the growth and enrollment in the district, that's something is definitely going to need to be happening. So once we turn over to our employee benefits, it's not too bad. We've actually, in the last meeting, we've actually asked for more staff. So that's why you see some of the increases in the retirement system, and the percentage are causing those increases as well. So if you look at the state retirement system, you'll see the $800,000 increase. That $800,000 includes a $500,000 transfer from reserve. So it's really a $409,000 increase on that line. The one that's really probably alarming everyone is the health and dental. That's an increase of about $3.5 million. That's going to be something we really need to look at over the next month to really determine what our costs will be for the health insurance. So included in that as well is $1 million from the health reserve. So essentially, we're looking for a $2.5 million increase in the general fund. So overall, right now, we're looking at 12.72% increase in employee benefits. That's up primarily just for the health and dental insurance and the buyout as well. All right, so what I talked about reserves a little bit. We actually would be using about $2.5 million of our reserves to fund the benefits. So we're using $1 million of the health reserve, $500,000 of the workers' comp, employee retirement system, $500,000, teacher retirement system, $500,000, unemployment, $25,000. This will help us offset the general fund budget greatly. And when the comptroller came in a few years ago, they highly recommended we use some of those funds. So this is our opportunity to do it. Just a little bit about the health plan update. The last time we increased premiums was July 1, 2017. What we're seeing this year, for the previous 2 years, we've been very fortunate, and our medical billing has been way down. But this year, we're seeing an average increase month of over $400,000 a month of medical billing, which is almost $5 million more than we had budgeted for. So we're trying to analyze that and see, when I say over the next month, before we get to the final budget, we really got to figure out what that number really is. And is it going to continue, or is it just some anomalies that we had medically this year? Now, before we went to self-insured, we kind of knew this could happen. You could have a really bad year, and then you could have 10 great years, and then one bad year can really kind of set you back. So that's why we had that $5 million reserve. The governor finally signed it in the fall, so that's very helpful to us to safeguard it for any catastrophes. So solutions to consider for the plan: use health reserve, which we've looked at putting $1 million in there. Obviously, we can talk about and see if we need more. Add more funds to the budget line, just adding money. But that takes away from other programs and things, so that's probably the last thing we really want to do. Increase monthly premiums. That's the one thing we don't want to do, but unfortunately we haven't done it in 3 years. And every time we go to the doctor, we get billing, the medical billing has increased. So that's one thing we have to look at very carefully. And then obviously, hopefully, April 1st, we get more state aid than what we've saw in the January runs. So this is probably the biggest contention for us right now for the next month, just trying to finalize what this number will actually look like. We have consultants that work on our healthcare plan, so we'll be getting some final numbers from them to really move forward with the actual budget number. So that's really it. It's kind of low key for us for the benefits other than the medical. Obviously, it looks like a big number, but we're going to try to really combat the increases with some other revenue sources. So here's our instruction, the budget calendar moving forward. As we said, April 2nd will be our revenue. The budget adoption will be right after a break on April 16th. And then our mandatory public hearing is May 7th. And then Super Tuesday, May 19th, budget vote and election vote. So that's it. Any questions? And I also provided you with a packet of itemized account codes with their budget lines in them.
We start down at this end of the table with Mr. Gomez. He's sitting down there by himself. I invited him to come over here and sit with us if he wanted to, but he was happy over there because he had more elbow room.
Yeah, I got two outstanding members of our team here, so.
Awesome. Mr. Gomez, any questions for Mr. Tuttle?
Yes. First, let me thank Mr. Tuttle and the administration. One thing when you look at our surrounding school districts, where budgets were presented to the voters, and those budgets involve tax increases to be rejected by the voters. Our district has exercised prudence over the years in understanding that New York homeowners, New York taxpayers are way overburdened. They kept our budget within or below the tax cap while at the same time meeting our benchmarks and objectives for the good of our students and our school capital projects. So I commend our district always following that common sense approach, that when you say REMA lives no new taxes, there's a reason for it, because it's what, at the end of the day, I believe works. I have a question that deals with the funding for the SROs.
Okay.
When you say it's 14,772, that's the district's funding portion for the 7 SROs?
No, unfortunately, no. That's the increase from last year. So we had a budget,
okay.
so that's a 2% increase on what their rates were from last year.
Okay.
And that's what they charge us, so that's what we transfer to the budget.
Now, one of the issues we've discussed is that one of our school buildings, particularly the high school, there's been a major increase in population. Has the districts explored or considered the possibility of down the road maybe having an additional SRO? And if so, what will be the cost? Is that something that's been considered?
Have we considered it? There has been conversation over the past couple of years. It hasn't gone much farther than a discussion. It would be the similar price of what we pay now for Middletown.
It'd be very close to $100,000.
Okay.
I think the budget for all 7 of them is about $800,000, something in that neighborhood. So you see some increases because their salaries increase. And to add another one would be about approximately a little bit more than $100,000.
And that's not counting what our municipalities, Middletown and Town of Walker, will contribute, right?
They don't contribute anything. We
contribute.
pay full,
No.
they don't contribute. No, we paid the total freight of that individual for that service.
We actually even pay for the cars.
The car, we even
walk-up
paid
car.
daily for the car to be there.
It comes straight from our budget. And then my other question is, if that were to be something, again, down the road in the future, would the proposed, what do you call it? The new proposed capital reserve, will that be something that will?
For the SROs?
No, okay. All right, then. All right, and then my last question goes into the health, the self-funding. You mentioned in your presentation that the long-term, the self-funding, which the state legislature and the governor approved for our district, will better financially, will save us long-term money, but there will be good years and bad years. Could you elaborate?
Yes, I can. So what the governor had signed in the legislature was the $5 million reserve. So that's like an account that we can have to offset any higher premiums, or if we have a catastrophic year. So I mean, a catastrophic year is where there's 10 or 20 people have some major surgeries. You know, we don't know what that year is going to like. I'm predicting now, a year and a half from now, what's going to happen. I can't do that. I would go play lottery if I could. But so what I mean by a good year, where the medical expenses are very low monthly, and a bad year is they're very high, which is what we're seeing this year.
Okay.
So it's hard to predict that.
And based on the anticipated numbers from the governor's office in April, do you see any major changes coming up?
Historically, from January to April, we usually receive maybe another $1.5 million, $2 million in aid. But, you know, I don't want to count on that until they actually run the numbers.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mr. C.
No? Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. As usual, I'll look this over during the week, and then I will
Okay,
get
absolutely.
back to you. Just a couple things. $20 million into the capital, you're proposing that in the capital reserves.
Correct.
I think I know the answer to this. What effect will that have on the taxpayers?
Actually, zero right now,
Right.
because we do not need to fund it immediately. The board, we only have really one time a year to create the reserve. So
Yeah.
we do it in May. It could sit with zero money in it for 20 years.
I just
But
want-
it's a good reserve for us to have for the future to
Thank you. I
safeguard.
just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
The
Good point.
other immediate question I have, on the health benefits, we're self-funded now, of course.
Yes.
And more advantageous to Orange Oaks to BOCES, the index Orange Oaks to BOCES. Have there been comparisons made? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We're
for
lower.
rates, for the rates you're saying?
Right.
I do have the comparison. I don't have all the figures with me, but 2017, for instance, their rates went up over 22%, I think, in their first
Right.
year. And then
I think
they've
22%.
Yeah, and they were, I think, 22 the next year. But I can get you some rate increases. I can give you a comparison of what they pay,
Mhm.
what the districts are paying versus
Yeah,
what we're.
again, I just wanted to bring that out,
Yeah.
that even though we may have to increase premiums
Correct.
somewhat,
Yeah.
we're still ahead of the game.
I mean, obviously, we're going to look at the numbers, and that would be one of the things we really try to avoid in adding more money. So if we can come up with some other revenue sources, it'd be very beneficial to us.
And as far as Mr. Gomez raised a question on the SROs and talked about the SROs, we're very serious about security in our buildings. I know this with the SROs and the security staff. No, we don't get money from Middletown and Walk Hill. We pay them. And what was it this year, about $720,000?
Probably a little more than that, because
more than
we
that.
had them for summer school, and sometimes they do some overtime, or so, it varies by each building. And then, like this summer coming up, the summer schools will be in different municipalities, so there'll be a different cost, because
Right.
each municipality has a different rate. So when you look at the budget, you'll see the three have a lower rate than the four.
But I know that the administration and the staff appreciates the SROs in the building.
Yep,
Just another layer of
Very
security.
positive.
And the other questions I have, I'll get to you during the week.
Okay.
I don't want to take the time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Reno, Mr. Bison.
Mike, I have a couple of questions, and I know we have a new program, so
Yeah.
that could be. Under 1620, 400, 1050, when you ask questions, you feel like, not from you, but I'm not, because this has to do with a municipality.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. We have a 17% raise there in water.
Yep, that's usually what we're seeing, like, the usage of water, so we pay for water in all the
Right.
buildings. And obviously, as our buildings keep expanding, we have more facilities, we
Okay.
have more, we're doing community food feeding now, so we're doing more dishes, we're doing, like, all these things happen, so you're paying for it coming in, you're paying to
For
leave.
going out.
Right, so,
My concern was, are the residents going to see this also?
no, they probably wouldn't see that much, that we don't, I mean, we use, quite a bit of water here.
And then the other one was 1621, 160, 1105, when we're talking about the security.
Yep.
Now, I'm sure you must have pulled out and put somebody else in there.
Which, are you talking about, the 11?
The 36%, the second one down, 1105.
Yeah, so originally last year we budgeted for, when we were creating the position, we put 80,000 in there. Well, when we got through all the negotiations, that's not where we ended up, so we put more money into that line.
Okay,
Yeah, it's the
Thank
same
you.
person that we hired, yeah.
okay. Appreciate it.
It's all
I can go home
contractual.
and drink some water, and I can still
Yeah, you
shower.
can, yeah.
and-
Well, you can take a bottle of water with you.
Thanks, Mike. I don't really have any questions. You made it very clear. Just as everybody was saying about the SROs, I think that the SROs not just even for security, but I think the SROs are important. They're just an important layer of support, just their presence. And it's primarily about building those relationships between the students and even our police agencies, so there's a layer of trust and a layer of safety, not just for the staff, but even for our scholars. So I think it's a very vital program, and it won't go. I don't think any of us sitting here at this table will allow it to go away without kicking and screaming.
Yeah, so, through the budget process, it's very rewarding when you see the robotics team. I love technology and I love that stuff. So like when Norville comes and says, "Oh, I need some money," I'm like, "Yeah, you can have money." So when you do that and you see the product of what happens, it's amazing. So,
Well, even if we talk about security.
right, so we're talking
what
about all
Lenny
these
has done
programs that we have to
in the
safeguard.
district this year.
So those are always our main focus every year. Programs, security, the health and well-being of the children, the staff, and all the buildings. So, the board has done a great job approving all the budgets, so it's been very, very nice.
Thank you, Mr. Tuttle.
Okay.
Anything else, Chief?
I think revenue is going to be very important on
Yes.
April 1st from the state legislature. That's why we moved our
Microphone.
revenue program to April 2nd, because by Constitution, the state legislators to have their budget in place by April 1st, and we'll present, knowing the exact numbers, what state aid we'll be receiving, so we can bring to the community and to you a very accurate picture of what the budget's going to look like up to for you to vote on, and then eventually to the voter.